I'm Michael Savage. I'm a magician.
You are dying. Every man, every woman, every child is dying. From the instant you are born, you begin to die, and the calendar is your executioner.
I got into magic from my aunt, and she was just awesome. She was into what everybody was into then, just questioning reality and wondering about what was happening, or what we can actually be as human beings versus what was going on at the time, which is kind of what's going on now, war and greed, and hoping that there was something more to this world and this universe than just those two things.
I think it was a combination of Aunt Barb being very mysterious and magical herself. She was into witchcraft and riding a Harley Davidson, and Doug Henning on television. He was like the magician of the 70s before David Copperfield. I just thought magic was the greatest.
My aunt enrolled me in a magic school, a mail order magic school, basically. Once a month I would get a new magic trick, and I would do the magic trick, and and I'd get books and things like that, and I totally got into magic. She really encouraged me into magic, and she encouraged me as I got older. Then I learned about other magic, like magic, the occult type magic.
It's a variety of stuff. I open up with a kind of a clown bit, just kind of popping balloons. People hate balloons. So just the fact that I pull out a balloon makes half the audience already scared. They're really scared. So they're just waiting for me to pop the balloon. So I just love to play with that tension. It's just kind of playing with people's anxieties. And then I choose red balloons because red psychologically sets you up. So it's all about a kind of a fun way to poke fun at fear. And then I do gross things, you know, sticking a needle through my tongue, and then people are like, oh my God, and then, haha, it's not a real tongue. So suddenly, ultimately, I'm in control of these things that you're afraid of. Or at least Dr. Tinkerpaw is, and everybody loves it. Oh, Dr. Tinkerpaw isn't really afraid of anything. He's seen it all. He's been all over the world, all over the underworld. He's brothers with the devil, and with death he chews the fat. He's takes himself to the edge of life and death on a regular basis, and understands that there's nothing to fear in this world, ultimately, because this world doesn't exist. He has magic elixir to sell, but he never pitches it. Eureka! And no one asks for it either, which is funny. Cures everything, including death.
The first part of my experience in life was experiencing a lot of death. The majority of people I knew died right away. So I had a relationship with death since I was a child. But at that time, I wasn't getting answers, and there was a lot of things going on in my life. Like I talked about earlier, a lot of people were dying, and a lot of terrible things were happening, bad people in my life, and just felt really powerless. And in some ways, I tried to seek out power, some sort of power from magic, imaginary, and occult. The only way I was able to do anything was by using my own skills and imagination.
Magic is power, and what it can actually do when it's done well, and the way people react to it is a little, I don't know, sometimes it even scares me. It's just the inexplicable mystery of a well-done magic trick. The beauty of it is mastering it or believing in the magic also. So when it happens for the spectator, it also happens for you. And if you both share that experience, it's very powerful. You know, it kind of just makes you think for a little bit about this world and what it means and what possibilities there really are. I use special effects, the special effect of magic, to kind of coerce people into thinking about their world a little differently, or at least I hope what they're doing is they're experiencing something that changes them a little more than just getting up and going to work and spending your weekend at the mall or at the bar or whatever it is that you do, and maybe think about life a little bit more. Can you see it? Ew! I hope to wake people up. My whole message of my show is carpe diem.
The seasons of Minnesota really kind of created that rhythm as far as the way I am and the way I understand the world. I collect skulls and dead things, butterflies and flowers, just to make things even, you know, so people don't think I'm totally weird. But they're dead flowers and dead butterflies, so I don't know if that matters or not. When you live in the kind of climate or this part of the world, that's kind of what you do to get through the winters, is hold on to last summer. There's like getting through winter and the canvas of the snow and your imagination and creating dreams and holding on to the dead butterflies and the dead flowers until spring.
We're all equal in the eyes of death. If death had eyes, that is.
Really well.
And that was Hometown Talent, St. Paul's own Poetics and DJ One, featuring Code Red and Sean Ski, These Streets, right here on WNER Radio, the home of hip hop. That's the latest single off the album Pain and Struggle. And speaking of Hometown Talent, we have a very special guest in the studio this evening. Why don't you introduce yourself to the Twin Cities and let everybody know a little bit about yourself?
My name's Malik Watkins. Artist name is Mally, 26 years old, from South Minneapolis. Hip hop artist, been doing music seriously probably since like 2007, 2008, but been writing and putting words together, rhyming and writing poetry and journaling probably since I was like 14, 15 years old. So, I mean, it gives you a span of how long I've kind of started, you know, trying to start the craft and put it together, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like I'm going to connect with the crowd using nothing but raw energy and talent and skill. When I get on stage, I'm connecting with people in the moment all the time. And I think on a bigger level, like, I mean, there's people who know who I am, who I perform for, but I still feel like somebody who might know who I am from my music might not know who I am once I get on stage. Like sometimes there's a separation. And I'm able to connect with those people who don't know very much about me based on what I'm able to do right there in the moment. I'm a very in the moment performer. So when I get on stage and I'm in the moment and I'm gonna rock them right now, like you've never heard of me before. Like you've never heard anything about me, just forget anything you've ever heard about me. And if you got an open mind, I'm gonna rock you.
I think to the extent that some parents are not yet thinking about the issue of genetically modified foods, part of the reason for that is because they really don't have any other options in the grocery store. So I think labeling genetically modified foods would actually give them options and give them choices, and I think that's what they would ideally like. Certainly if they knew anything about some of the animal studies that have connected GMO foods to health concerns, they would stop and think twice before they bought those foods and fed them to their children. So I think if they had access to other foods, they would choose other foods, and that would also turn our whole agricultural system in a direction that is more democratic and more sustainable for all of us.
Well, what would happen to farmers if GMOs were labeled? Well, we have to keep in mind that this whole development of GMOs is really very recent. It's only been about 15 years that these products have been on the market. And so, you know, farmers were growing non-GMO crops for many, many years, and they could certainly shift back to non-GMO crops if that's where the market was at. The problem is right now a lot of the smaller seed companies have all been bought up. Their genetics are all being controlled by the companies that own the GMOs and sell, and they promote the GMOs because they're patented and they can charge much higher price. And there's a lot of backlash amongst farmers for the exorbitant prices that the companies, the biotech companies, are charging for their seeds. So it could get back to less expensive seeds, and I think farmers would welcome that. They would have more control. They'd be able to save their own seeds again.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Look, man, this is my first and last situation with the police. I was 22 years old, and I was transferring from one bus to another on the way home. And there was a large group of young brothers hanging out on the bus stop. All of a sudden, 2 police officers grabbed me, handcuffed my hands behind my back, threw me to the ground with so much force I busted my head. I told them I was not a part of that group and definitely not selling drugs. They frisked me and then they let me go since I didn't have any drugs. They never said a word until they handcuffed me and threw me to the ground. This was the 80s, and today would be called racial profiling.
Well, when I think about the word peer, I tend to think of people who have been in a similar circumstance as another perhaps comparative group. So if we're thinking, for example, a jury of one's peers. Essentially, I would think of peers as people who have some type of nexus to the life experiences of the other person involved or people involved. One of the issues that impacts our society most today is what I would call the incarceration crisis. And when I say incarceration crisis, I'm talking about the fact that more than 2.4 million people are currently incarcerated in this country. So while the United States holds 5% of the world's population, we hold 25% of the world's prisoners. And unfortunately, the exploding prison population here in the United States falls most heavily on the African American community. African Americans are roughly 13% of the population here in the United States, but we're roughly 40% of those who are incarcerated here.
I'm Irv Williams, age 92 and counting. I like all forms of music. I like classical. I played with a polka band once. I enjoyed that. I've done everything. So I enjoy them all, but my specialty, of course, is the Great American Songbook. I liked Sarah Vaughan, of course, and Ella Fitzgerald. Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster and the people that era were the ones that I liked.
Yeah. Hey, Peter. How you doing, man?
Happy birthday, Irv.
Happy birthday, Irv. I love you so much. Happy 93rd birthday. I want to tell you that I've worked at the Dakota for 9 years, and I come here every Friday just to hear you at happy hour. You're such a lovely man. I love your son, your entire family, and all the contributions that you've given to Minnesota and the Dakota. We just thank you so much. Have a wonderful birthday.